Welcome to this week's and the first KBJ Weekly Pan-African News Roundup. Here we serve you with all the major news headlines from across Africa and the African diaspora. My name is Joseph Amwakwata. In the headlines, Africa revives call for reparation for slave trade and colonial wrongs. Kenya heads to the polls on August 9th. African athletes shine at the 2022 Commonwealth Games. Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo this week has revived the push for slavery and colonial retribution. At a summit on reparation and racial healing in Accra, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo said, as I quote, "No amount of money can restore the damage caused by transatlantic slave trade and its consequences, which has spanned many centuries. But nevertheless, it is now time to revive and intensify the discussions about reparations for Africa." With Ghana as one of the points for departure for many of those enslaved in West Africa, her president thinks the time for reparation and colonial crimes and slavery is long overdue. The forced exodus of Africans to many parts of the world lasted over 400 years, but reparations still haven't taken place, and the process has been slower than many Africans had expected. President Akufo-Addo said, "The entire continent of Africa deserves a formal apology from European nations that were involved in the slave trade, the crimes and damages that it has caused to the population, psyche, and the image of the African the world over." Kenyans go to the polls on Tuesday, August 9th, for a high-stake presidential, parliamentary, and local government elections. Kenya remains an economic powerhouse in East Africa, despite a pandemic and a drought which it hasn't experienced in 40 years. 4 candidates are vying for the top job, including the current Vice President, William Ruto, and former opposition leader, now backed by the government, Raila Odinga. It is essentially a two-horse race between these two, but other candidates aiming to cause an upset are George Wajakoya and David Mweri. This election will signify the end of the Kenyatta era. It will also be the first election since 2013 with the opposition freely participating in the process, barring any violence and allegations of manipulations. The population of about 50 million is expected to make a choice that will hopefully improve standards of living and promote national development. To the Democratic Republic of Congo, DR Congo has asked the spokesperson of the United Nations peacekeeping mission, MONUSCO, to leave the country, blaming him for stoking tensions that led to deadly protests last week. 36 people, including 4 UN peacekeepers, were killed last week as hundreds of protesters vandalized and set fire to UN buildings in several cities in Congo's east. Civilians accused the mission, which has been active for more than a decade, of failing to protect them from the militia violence that has long plagued the region. Authorities said these protests were stimulated by complaints that the UN mission MONUSCO failed to protect civilians against militia violence, which has raged them for years. The African Center for Statistics, ACS, at the Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, on July 21st, hosted a policy dialogue on the impact of the Ukraine-Russia conflict on commodity and food prices in Africa. The ACS director, Oliver Chinganya, stated that Africa in the last 2 years has been hit by exogenous shocks that undermine its dreams of prosperity. Interest rate hikes, increased borrowing costs, weakened currencies, and tightening global financial conditions have had a dire implication on the fiscal space of low and middle income countries. Therefore, the Economic Commission for Africa is supporting its member states to reduce the severity of food crisis through the Africa Trade Exchange Platform, ATEX. The ATEX is described as a pool procurement marketplace, which has the potential to strengthen Africa's economic resilience. The platform can mitigate the supply shocks by pooling and aggregation Africa's demand and supply to enable the negotiation of competitive prices and facilitate the delivery of essential commodities at affordable prices while boosting regional trade. explained by the ECA economist Wafa Aide. The meeting discussed further solutions to counter a third debt crisis in Africa, including the need for African countries to prioritize the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, support agricultural production, as well as improve the resilience of agricultural systems. Founder and head of mission at the African Diaspora Forum, DAF, Dr. Erieka Bennett, has been chosen to receive President Joe R. Biden's Lifetime Achievement Award. She was nominated by the African and Caribbean Leadership Organization for this year, 2022. The prestigious award will be held during the Congressional Black Caucus annual event, which is scheduled to take place on September 29, 2022 in Washington, D.C. The President's Volunteer Service Award is a civic award bestowed by the President of the United States. Established by executive order by George W. Bush, the award is to honor volunteers that give hundreds of hours per year helping others through the President's Council on Service and Civic Participation. Into the world of sports. It has already been a week at the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games, and African countries definitely did put their culture and color on display during the 2022 Commonwealth Games opening ceremony. Nations such as Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa were the toast of the opening ceremony with their matchless outfits. African medals won so far are a combined of 60, with South Africa leading the African chart with 22 medals at the end of day 8 at the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games. This is the third time that England will host the Commonwealth Games after London did in 1930 and Manchester in 2022. It is also the 7th edition to take place in the United Kingdom. Staying at the Commonwealth Games, Ferdinand Omanyala got his revenge by striking gold in the men's 100 meters at Birmingham 2022. Omanyala, who did not get a fair opportunity to compete at the World Athletics Championships, put his woes behind him to race to victory. He is now the African and Commonwealth champion as well as the African record holder. Ferdinand Omanyala atoned for his World Championship misfortunes by winning the men's 100-meter finals of the Commonwealth Games. He dethroned the reigning champion Akani Simbine of South Africa by running at 10.02 seconds to become the first Kenyan to win the race in over 60 years. The executive chairman of the local organizing committee of the 2023 African Games, Dr. Kweku Ofosu-Osari, has reiterated his outfit's readiness to make the upcoming Continental Showpiece a memorable experience for the athletes and the worldwide audience. Ghana's capital, Accra, will host over 5,000 elite athletes, 3,000 technical officers, journalists, and global celebrities for the multi-purpose competition from August 4th to August 16th in 2023. The African Games Accra will be having an estimated TV and online audience of over 5.5 billion, making it perhaps the biggest in the competition's history. Speaking on Wednesday from Birmingham, where the LOC officially launched the one-year countdown to the 2023 African Games as part of its Commonwealth Games Observer Overview program, Dr. Ofosu-Osari highlighted the essence of maintaining a high standards and quality of hosting such games. In arts, culture and tourism, Getty and the Smithsonian have announced that they will now share ownership of Ebony and Jet Magazine's renowned photo archives. For 7 decades, Ebony and Jet magazines printed compelling stories and vivid photographs depicting Black life and culture in America. At a time when mainstream media and pop culture focused on white audience, the two publications, published by the Chicago-based Johnson Publishing Company, started in the 1940s and 50s, offered an authentic window into the Black experience. Now, the magazine's iconic photo archives are a step closer to being accessible by the public. A consortium of philanthropic organizations officially transferred the publishing company's archives to the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture and the Getty Research Institute, the groups announced last week. Experts are now hard at work digitizing and conserving the publishing company's expansive archives of photos, negatives, slides, and other photographic artifacts so that journalists, scholars, and members of the general public can soon access and study them. Kevin Young, the NMAAHC's director, tells Smithsonian magazine that it is an incredible honor to be able to continue and share that story and that history, much of which remains to be fully explored, with the public and the future generations of scholars and students. He also acknowledged the role of these magazines in the time of shaping and understanding the African American culture. Ghana's Minister of Tourism calls on Ghanaians outside Ghana to promote Ghana's tourism. The Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture, Dr. Ibrahim Mohamed Awal, has urged Ghanaian residents in the United States to champion the drive to increase international tourism to Ghana by promoting tourism attractions in Ghana. He said, tourism assets such as forts and castles, rich and diversified culture, high life music, and ecotourism sites were some of Ghana's unique attractions which should be promoted and marketed to the international community. Dr. Awal made calls when he addressed a gathering of Ghanaians at this year's Ghana Fest held in Chicago at the weekend. That will be all for the weekly Pan-African News Roundup. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Kente Business Journal TV, and click on the notification bell. You can comment, like, and share. You can also follow us on all our social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram. It's bye for now.